The Marvel Cinematic Universe is an ever-expanding entity with bigger and bigger blockbusters and more characters from the original comics being brought to the big screen every year. Among all of the possible characters who could be introduced into the MCU, there are some seriously amazing female heroes who deserve their moment in the spotlight. And here are just a few who we hope make the jump as soon as possible.
Where were you?
Where were you?
Starting off with the one with the coolest name, let's talk about Firebird. Belonging to the group somewhat adorably known as the West Coast Avengers as opposed to our New York-based friends, Firebird also goes by the name of Bonita Juarez. After being hit with a ball of cold flames in the New Mexico desert, Juarez developed the ability to wield a ton of fiery energy. Along with that, she can also fly up to 130 miles per hour and is nearly indestructible. Aside from her incredible power and general all-around awesomeness, Bonita Juarez is one of the most prominent Latina superheroes. And with the push for the MCU to include more and more representation these days, Firebird would be the perfect addition to the already stacked cinematic universe. While other comic book heroes get names like Firebird and Scarlet Witch and Hawkeye, some get a name that is even more exciting. A name that strikes fear into the hearts of anyone who dares to utter their name aloud and makes their blood run cold. A name like Angela. Okay, so she may not have the most superhero-y name of the bunch, but make no mistake, this Asgardian superhero has a lot more going on than her name might suggest. Another one of Thor's sisters, Angela is an extremely powerful fighter, has super strength, and can fly. We're not sure what they're cooking up over there for Thor post-Ragnarok, but there is no way that introducing Angela to the mix would be anything other than awesome.
Thunder!
With the recent success of Captain Marvel, now would be the perfect time to bring in one of the freshest and newest superheroes, Miss Marvel. While the title of Miss Marvel has been taken on by a few others, we are specifically talking about Kamala Khan, the first Muslim character to ever get her own book in the Marvel canon. Because everybody deserves to see themselves in their favorite superhero characters, Ms. Marvel would be a welcome addition to the MCU. Her superpower is that of being able to alter her shape and size at will and has a fierce determination to make the world a better place. There has already been talk of her appearing in the second Captain Marvel movie, so it's likely we'll see her on the big screen in no time. We movie fans love a good villain, almost as much as we cherish our heroes. So, a Thunderbolts movie about a crew of some of the best bad guys could be exactly what the Doctor ordered, if they could get it right. James Gunn has expressed direct interest in developing the project, and if he can bring the same flair to it as he did the Guardians of the Galaxy, we are all in. If it goes ahead, it would be the perfect opportunity to introduce Songbird into the MCU mix. As her name suggests, one of Songbird's abilities is to emit high-frequency sound. But like any of the best characters out there, she's not all bad or good, and has worked for both the side of justice and the side of mayhem, like one of the most popular characters ever, Loki.
You're not a witch. No? Why'd you dress like one?
We briefly met X-23, aka Laura Kinney, in the amazing movie Logan, but we would like nothing more than to see her all grown up and maybe in a movie of her own. The result of a handful of cruel experiments featuring DNA stolen from Wolverine and trained all of her life to be nothing more than a weapon, the struggle to own her own humanity would make Laura Kinney a complicated and fascinating protagonist. Much like Wolverine himself. Her life was incredibly tumultuous, having lived on the streets doing whatever she had to survive before eventually crossing paths with the X-Men. It's a very gritty backstory that would be absolutely perfect for the MCU. When it comes to feline-inspired superheroes, why should Selina Kyle in DC have all the fun?
I'm not sure I feel as strongly about it as you do.
We would love to see the character of Black Cat enter the MCU, and actually there have been some rumblings about it from the studio. Black Cat, aka Felicia Hardy, is the daughter of a famous cat burglar and a survivor of a college sexual assault, which led her to seek revenge on her attacker by developing her abilities. Eventually, she would develop a relationship with Spider-Man, and we think she would be a perfect addition to the MCU. Her backstory is as relevant and important as it has ever been, and the overcoming of her obstacles would prove to be an inspiration for young women everywhere. Another female hero who takes after her feline friends is Tigra, aka Greer Grant. A sketchy scientific experiment, some mystical meddling, and intense psychological conditioning left Grant at the peak of her physical abilities, and with the superhuman powers of a cat. Strength, agility, speed, sharp claws, amazing night vision, and even a long tail. She eventually took on the mantle of Tigra and began her career as a warrior for justice, specifically against the evil organization Hydra at the beginning. While she can change back and forth between her human and feline form, Tigra actually prefers her super identity and chooses to spend her time as such. She has crossed paths with the Avengers and Spider-Woman, and sounds like the updated version of DC's Catwoman that we need in our lives. Everything changed in Avengers Infinity War, and we have no idea exactly how things are going to work out. At least we won't until Endgame finally hits theaters, but it seems like Marvel has been in the mood to shake things up.
Reality can be whatever I want.
So it's easy to imagine that they could open the door to an all-new interpretation of Iron Man. We're talking about Ironheart, and she's got a great backstory to go along with it. Also known as Riri Williams, Ironheart is a young MIT student who constructs her own Iron Man suit and gives herself an alias. It would make sense for Tony to want to pass the torch along to someone, and Riri seems like just the gal for the job. Maybe she could even be played by Rihanna.
We're in the endgame now.
The recent joining of Spider-Man to the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done wonders for the character. So who knows how much more they're going to expand the Spideyverse. We've seen a whole bunch of Peter Parkers so far, so maybe it's time we get a look at Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman.
There's only one Spider-Man.
While they may share a similar set of powers, Jessica is different from Peter in just about every way. Injected with a spider serum in order to save her life when she was a child, Jessica is a super spy affiliated with the S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra, and SWORD agencies. There have been hints that she might make an appearance in Spider-Man Far From Home, so we'll just have to wait and see. We already know that a second Doctor Strange movie will be hitting theaters as part of the next phase of Marvel movie rollouts. But there is one big question on all of our minds. Will Clea finally be making an appearance? Some thought Rachel McAdams would be taking on the role in the first film, but we know that didn't happen and have been waiting with bated breath ever since. Clea is a princess of the Dark Dimension, a mystic, and a longtime love of the Doctor himself. It seems natural to bring her into this sequel, and fans everywhere would jump at the chance to see one of their favorite, more obscure characters brought to life. While some of you might picture Cara Delevingne dancing around casting funky spells when you hear the name Enchantress,
join me or die.
That is very much not who we're talking about right now. We're talking about Marvel's Enchantress, and she deserves her moment in the MCU spotlight. This Enchantress is also named Amora and was born in Asgard. She and Thor have had their run-ins, as Odin once urged her to kidnap Jane Foster because he saw her as a distraction, but was eventually banished from Asgard after her attempt to turn his hammer into a snake. She then became a member of the Masters of Evil and used her powers to weaken the Avengers from the inside through Thor. If that doesn't sound like an awesome addition to the MCU, then we don't know who will. We love an alliteration and a ruthless mercenary, so Silver Sable is one of our top picks to make it into the MCU. With an indomitable will, a serious mastery of martial arts, and the ability to speak 7 languages, Silver Sable was born to take down bad guys. The daughter of a Nazi hunter who began training with her father when she was young, Sable's mission is to take down the worst war criminals out there, and leads a group called the Wild Pack. She's often linked with Spider-Man, so she could be a natural fit to appear in his upcoming movies, before maybe getting one of her own. It's only natural that Sue Storm gets a special spot on this list, as she is without a doubt a fan favorite to join the MCU. While the Fantastic Four have had a hard time on the big screen,
How about 2 guys, a girl, and the thing that nobody wanted?
maybe now is the moment to bring Sue off the page and into the Avengers squad. There is talk of the Fantastic Four getting an MCU revamp, and that could be just what the foursome need to really get their movies off the ground. With her abilities to turn herself invisible and construct force fields, she's pretty different from every other current MCU hero. We all know that Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to be big, and Sue Storm might be the perfect way to kick things off. While the others on this list have been characters who would be entirely new additions to the MCU, we have actually already met this character, but think she deserves a little more time in the spotlight. All the way back in the very first Thor movie, Natalie Portman appeared on screen as Jane Foster, but that's not exactly the Jane we want to see. In 2014, Jane was given an amazing storyline in which she was deemed worthy of wielding Thor's hammer when he was no longer able to. She actually became super powerful and took on the name Thor, the goddess of thunder, and even joined the Avengers. With the future of Chris Hemsworth as Thor unsure, as the actor might be done with the role after Endgame, maybe it's time for Jane to step in and smooth the transition.
Thank you.
In a totally random move, we would actually love to see the character of Saturnyne make an appearance, or maybe get her own standalone movie. Saturnyne has a few different alternate versions, and the one who would fit into the MCU the most would probably be Courtney Ross from the timeline of Earth 616. While she used to be the love interest of Captain Britain, she went on to become the senior vice president of a huge banking firm. She's extremely smart, a tough leader, beyond rich, an escape artist, and amazing at hand-to-hand combat. And in a fun twist, has proven herself adept at stand-up comedy, which altogether sounds like one weird and wonderful movie. In one of the possible future versions of Earth, when men and women were completely at war and there was no traditional procreation, cloning and laboratory birds were the only method of bringing new children into the world. In this divided society, a group called the United Sisterhood Republic was formed, and the character of Thundra was born. She was an extremely powerful warrior, genetically engineered for combat, and when she was of age, enrolled in military school. Thundra would eventually wind up in the 20th century of our timeline and would find her place working alongside the Fantastic Four. Her story is totally nuts, and Thundra is a total warrior and someone we would love to see drop into the MCU one of these days. In a Lady Liberators movie, perhaps? One of the biggest stories of late is the upcoming Eternals movie, which would go into space to expand upon the background of Thanos and all of the other members of his ancient race who have lived on Earth for thousands of years. And this movie is gonna be huge, which means it is the perfect chance to introduce Cersei. No, not that Cersei. This one is 5,000 years old at least, and first became a legend in 1300 BC. According to Kevin Feige, the Eternals could span thousands of years, which would allow us to see Cersei be present during some of the most tumultuous and prolific periods of human existence. Which all sounds amazing! We're already lining up to buy our tickets and popcorn for this one. Some of the best Marvel characters out there are a little bit more obscure and super weird. Take Squirrel Girl, for instance, who we would love to see enter the MCU. With all the universe-ending intensity and general grittiness going on these days, it would be a breath of fresh air to introduce a character who, for unknown reasons, developed the traits of a squirrel as a child. Now possessing the same strength and agility as a grown-up, Squirrel Girl is actually very powerful and eventually became an Avenger. We would love to see her join the team, or even get a standalone movie of her own. In the best of all possible circumstances, it would be directed by Taika Waititi, who came in and changed the game entirely with Thor Ragnarok. After the developmental problems Squirrel Girl went through on the now cancelled freeform show New Warriors, this squirrel definitely needs some rodent justice. There's been a ton of information coming out of Marvel lately saying that the expansion of the Marvel Cinematic Universe will delve even more into the actual universe, like into space. Which is awesome. And since Doctor Strange started to open up the idea of the multiverse a little bit more, this character would be the absolute perfect addition to the squad. America Chavez, aka Miss America, is not only superhumanly strong and with the powers of flight, but she can also kick holes into reality. She uses this power to travel throughout the multiverse and in and out of realities, and who wouldn't want to see that movie? Along with everything else about her, Miss America is also a proud lesbian, which would make her a perfect role model for a ton of young fans out there. Possibly the character that fans have been most hungry to see on the big screen for the first time is none other than She-Hulk. And now that it seems like we finally have a movie version of Bruce Banner that fans can completely get behind thanks to the awesome Mark Ruffalo, it's really only a matter of time.
Dude, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards.
For those who don't know, when she's not green, She-Hulk goes by the name of Jennifer Walters, a New York lawyer and Bruce Banner's cousin. She gained her superpowers after a blood transfusion from Banner himself while in human form, which does seem like a risky move on his part, to be honest. While she doesn't lose herself in the same way that he does, her greening is often depicted as permanent, unlike his. She has actually been the legal representation for a bunch of different Marvel characters in the past, so is a totally natural fit for the MCU. Well, we'd see any of these movies in a heartbeat, and be thrilled to find these characters popping up in any future MCU projects. What about you? Who's your favorite of the bunch? Did we miss anyone you'd be dying to see? Let us know down below, and we hope you had fun watching.